Hi again then guys, and welcome to the very first top speed tune setup that I've done for Forza 7, and what better way to start than with one of the fastest cars in the game, but at the same time not necessarily one of the fastest for top speed, more so one of the fastest around a circuit, the Renault RS.17. I reviewed this car recently, last week, and of course I extolled the virtues of the car. It's very good, but what about in a straight line? Well, when you do upgrades on a car like this, you don't really expect to be able to do that much, and you can't do that much. All you can do is change the rims and the size of the rims. Now, you can change the rims and have some which weigh the same as the stock wheels, so if you want to, you can. And incidentally, if you want this tune on your Renault, you can get it on my storefront, so use the keywords down in the description to find that. But I would not recommend, if you are going to do it yourself, changing the rim size. It's just not necessary and it adds weight. Now, as far as the tuning side of things, because of course upgrades don't really matter on a car like this, as you can see the benchmark is pretty good, especially for top end speed. It's a lot quicker than it is stock, for instance, or of course with higher downforce. Now, as far as the gearbox goes, you don't have to make huge changes to this one. Most of the change comes from the final drive. I'd recommend 5.3 on that. Then for the individual gears, we've got 2.4, 1.75, 1.45, 1.25, 1.1, 0.95, 0.8, and 0.7. Now, as far as the rest, it's down to you, because of course most people won't just use this as a drag car, they'll need to use it on tracks with corners as well, such as here at the Le Mans. This is the kind of place where this car is designed to perform well. This tune is to allow you to have the top speed to still take on stuff like prototypes, whereas typically you wouldn't with a Formula car on a more high-end track. Now, I've gone for 1 degree of camber, as you can see. You don't necessarily need to stick to that, you could go higher or lower. I've got neutral toe, again, that's down to you, 5 degrees of caster. Anti-roll I've got on 17 and 12. Springs are basically stock, I don't think I've changed those. The ride height we've got as low as possible. You can actually increase the top speed by around 0.4 up to 229.5 by raising the front all the way, but I would not recommend that because it does not improve your handling. In fact, it adversely affects it. As far as the dampers, we've got those on 7 and 5 respectively. The aero, of course, you want as low as possible, and that's again down to you. You can basically use this tutorial and then just increase the downforce if you need to take it on a different track. That's the beauty of the tune. It's more of an all-rounder, which happens to be really good for top-end speed. That's what I try to make all of my tunes do if possible. Now, for the braking, I haven't adjusted that, and finally for the diff, I basically just rounded it off to 60% for acceleration, 10% for decel, but of course with stuff like the diff and the suspension in particular, it really is down to personal preference and driving style. With these current settings, it's a little bit heavier through the corners, which might not be the result that you'd expect. You'd probably assume that with low downforce and being a top speed tune, it might be a bit more slippery, but it's actually not. It's got a slightly worse turning circle, so the turn-in isn't quite as sharp. If that bothers you, of course you can adjust the suspension, the diff, that kind of stuff, but that's the whole point. My tunes are designed to be as personalisable as possible. So all that remains, of course, is to actually take it out on the Lasart straight to see what it can do. Now, some vehicles, of course, race cars or otherwise, do struggle a little bit to hit the benchmark on certain Forza games. This isn't one of those. It gets to that top speed insanely quickly, especially for mid-range acceleration, because of course, off the line with an F1 car, you have to measure your throttle a lot more so you don't excessively wheel spin, and top end, it doesn't have quite as much acceleration as something like a hypercar, but mid-range, that's when it really comes into its own, and that's actually the kind of speed that you spend most of your time at around the circuit anyway, so it's really useful for a car like this. And as you can see from me driving the car, even with the lowest possible downforce, it's not slippery through the corners. You can spin up the wheels, but I would say no more easily than you could to begin with downforce. So the handling is surprisingly good, considering it is designed predominantly to be a top-end speed tune. So if you want to use this as a multi-purpose build, all you need to do basically is take this tune, and then when you take it on a track which doesn't require as much top-end speed, just go into your settings, put the downforce all the way up or halfway or whatever you want, and it will basically still serve you well. So if you do decide to use this tune in tutorial form or get it from my storefront, either way, I hope you have a lot of fun with it, and it's an incredibly capable car, And so, if you'd like to check out more tunes and reviews, you can click through to the full list at the end of this video. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.